Welcome in, everyone. I hope you're doing well wherever you're watching from, but we have breaking news right now, and you need to pay very close attention because this situation has just taken a major turn. We are getting multiple reports at this hour that Iran may have just struck back, and there are growing claims, still developing, that a US base could have been hit, possibly even severely damaged. At the same time, we are seeing reports of massive explosions, confusion on the ground, and rapidly shifting military activity across the region. And here's the key part. This may not be an isolated response. This could be the beginning of a much larger escalation. So stick with me here, because we have a lot to break down and new details are coming in literally as I'm recording this. Before we go any further, make sure to like and subscribe, completely free, helps the channel a lot. And if you want real-time updates like this, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think this escalates further? Because based on what we're seeing, this might just be the start. All right, let's get into it. So first, I'm going to bring this up for you here. Early reports indicate that multiple projectiles or strike elements may have been launched toward a US position in the region. Now, we're still working to confirm exactly what was used, but the key detail is impact. There are reports of explosions at or near a US base, and not small ones. We're talking large-scale detonations, fireballs, and shockwaves being described by witnesses. And here's where it gets interesting, because initial footage that's starting to circulate appears to show multiple impact points, not just one. So this was not random. This was coordinated. Now stick with me here, because this next part adds another layer to the situation. We are now getting reports that defensive systems may have been activated during the incoming strike. In some of the early visuals, you can see flashes in the sky, what appears to be interception attempts. That means this was not uncontested. This was an active defensive engagement. And this is where things start to escalate. Because according to additional sources, there are indications that some of those incoming projectiles may have gotten through. Now, we don't have full confirmation yet on the extent of the damage, but the fact that this is even being suggested tells you how serious this situation is becoming. Now hold that thought, because it gets even more intense. We're also hearing that multiple impacts may have occurred in sequence. So this wasn't just a single strike. This could have been a wave. And when you combine that with the scale of explosions being reported, this starts to look like a major retaliatory action. And I want to show you something here. Footage coming out, again still being verified, shows bright flashes followed by rising smoke, multiple bursts lighting up the area one after another. In some clips, you can actually see what appears to be secondary explosions after the initial impact. That suggests something significant may have been hit. Now here's where things take another turn. We are now getting word that responses are already being discussed. And if that turns into action, this could escalate even further. So this is no longer just about what happened. It's about what happens next. And this is critical. Because at the same time, there are reports that US military assets in the region are being placed on heightened alert. That includes bases, air defense systems, and potentially rapid response units. When you see that kind of movement, it tells you preparation is underway. Now stick with me, because this next update is important, and it adds even more pressure to what we're seeing right now. There are also unconfirmed reports suggesting that the area that was struck may have included high-value equipment or infrastructure, and if that turns out to be true, it would explain the intensity of the explosions and the concern we're seeing in early reactions. But it also raises a much bigger question. Was this a measured response, or something meant to send a much stronger message? Because those are two very different scenarios. Now, I also want to point out something else here, timing. This response appears to have come relatively quickly after earlier developments in the region. That's not accidental. That suggests readiness. That suggests preparation. So this may not have been improvised. This may have been planned. And that's why this situation is so serious. Now, as of right now, we are still waiting on confirmation regarding damage assessments, possible casualties, and the full extent of the impact. But even without that information, the pattern tells us everything we need to know. This was significant, and it may not be over. Now, we're getting new reports right now, and I'm going to get to those in just a second. But first, you need to understand something. The sequence we're seeing here matters. Initial strikes, rising tension, and now a possible counterstrike. That's escalation. And escalation leads somewhere. Now here's the next layer. There are indications that emergency response activity may already be underway at or near the impacted area. That suggests real damage. That suggests something happened on the ground. And if that's confirmed, it adds another level to this situation. Now hold on, because this connects directly to what we're hearing next. Some sources are suggesting that personnel may have been present at the location during the strike. Now again, nothing fully confirmed yet, but if that turns out to be true, we could be looking at casualties. And if casualties are confirmed, the pressure for further response increases dramatically. So now we're moving from impact to consequence, and that is a major turning point. Now we're also hearing that monitoring systems may have detected continued activity even after the initial impacts. That suggests this situation is still active. And I'm going to break that down in just a moment, because this is where things start to move toward a much bigger picture. And this is where it gets serious, because what we're seeing right now suggests that this situation may be entering a new phase, and you need to stay with me here because this next part could change everything. We're getting new reports right now that activity in the region has not slowed down after those initial impacts, and that is critical because it means whatever just happened may not be finished. This may still be unfolding. Now think about that. If a strike happens and activity continues afterward, that suggests either follow-up actions are underway or preparations are being made for what comes next. And I'm going to connect that to something else in just a moment, because it builds into a much larger picture. But first, stick with me here. We are also seeing increasing indications that coordination is happening behind the scenes at a very high level. And what that means is decisions are being made in real time, not later, not after review, right now. And when decisions are happening that quickly, it usually means the situation is unstable. Now this is where it intensifies even further, because alongside that, there are now reports that certain areas may have been secured or restricted following the impacts. Movement is being limited, access is being controlled, and that tells you something significant may have been hit. You don't restrict areas like that unless there's something important to secure or contain. So now we're looking at impact, response, containment, all happening at once, and that's a major signal. Now I want you to visualize this because the descriptions coming in are intense. You've got sudden flashes lighting up the area, followed by thick smoke rising quickly into the air. In some cases, witnesses are describing multiple explosions happening back to back, with a brief delay between the flash and the sound, which tells you the scale of the blasts was significant. That's not minor, that's powerful. And this is where it gets even more serious. Because if those impacts were concentrated on key infrastructure or equipment, the implications could be major. We're talking possible damage to critical systems, loss of equipment, and again, potential casualties, which we still don't have confirmed but remain a major factor here. Now hold on, because this next update is critical. We are getting indications that discussions may already be underway regarding a response strategy. And again, nothing officially confirmed yet, but the fact that planning is happening tells you this is moving beyond reaction. It's moving toward action, and action changes everything. Now the question becomes, how controlled is that action? Or does it escalate further? Because once multiple sides begin to respond, things can move very quickly. Now stick with me because this next detail connects directly to that risk. Defensive systems across the region are not being stood down. In fact, in some cases, they are being reinforced. That means anticipation is still high. No one is stepping back. Everything remains on edge. And that's the key word, edge. Because when everything is on edge, even a small move can trigger a much larger reaction. Now let's go back to something we mentioned earlier. The idea that this may not be a single isolated strike. Because the more information we get, the more that becomes clear. Multiple impacts, continued activity, rapid response, strategic positioning. This points to something structured, something intentional, and possibly something ongoing. Now here's where it builds toward the most serious implication so far. If this situation triggers a broader escalation, the scale of that escalation will determine what happens next. A limited response could contain the situation, but a large-scale reaction could expand it beyond control. And that is the scenario everyone is watching right now. Because that's how larger conflicts begin. One strike, one response, then escalation. Now we're getting new reports right now, and I'm going to bring those to you as soon as they are confirmed. But here's what you need to understand. We are in a rapidly evolving situation. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is final. And the next development could change everything. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this escalates further? Or does it stop here? Because based on what we're seeing right now, this still feels like the beginning. Make sure to like and subscribe for real-time updates. Stay with the channel for the latest developments, and I'll see you in the next update.